The National Bar Association and the Diverse Partners Network working together, and so they can get in the videotape. I need to stand over here.
Thank you.
And so we're thrilled that you're out tonight braving bad weather. We had 90 people signed up, and so I still expect others will come before the evening is out. And also, whatever you do, please enjoy the refreshments. Otherwise, I have to take it home and eat them all. And very much appreciated. I'm Ben Wilson. I'm the managing principal of my law firm here, Beveridge and Diamond. We're a small to medium-sized firm by Washington standards, but we have more environmental lawyers than any firm in the country. That's my commercial, and I'm sticking to it. But we had 2 or 3 things we wanted to talk about. First, we always want to meet with a purpose, and there's a wonderful woman here back there. She's going to come up, see, she's walking this way, Nicole. She's going to tell you something about a great work that she's doing that I thought would be of interest to you, and you might have an opportunity to be helpful in making a difference in the lives of young women and their children. Please.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I want to thank Benjamin for having me and having Generation Hope featured in tonight's event. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I do want to just spend a few minutes telling you a little bit about Generation Hope and our organization. I see some familiar faces around the room. We have presented at one other DPN event and had a really great time and made some wonderful connections, so I look forward to staying in touch after tonight's event. Generation Hope is a brand new organization in the DC metro area, okay? We provide direct sponsorships and one-on-one mentoring to teen mothers and teen fathers who are pursuing their college degrees here in the DC metro area. The statistics for how many teen parents actually go on to get their college degrees are pretty dismal. The national campaign says that about less than 2% of young women who get pregnant before the age of 18 go on and get a degree before age 30, which means that the vast majority, 98%, are more than likely to be living in poverty with their children. They're suffering from the negative consequences of the teen pregnancy and low educational attainment. And those effects not only affect the individual, their child, but our community at large. And so a lot of the issues that we care about, homelessness, hunger, child welfare, education, are affected by how many teen parents are actually going on to get their college degrees. I know this from experience. I was a teen mother. I got pregnant my senior year in high school. I was college bound. I had already been accepted to several colleges. I was an honor roll student. And despite all of that, I was told the same thing that a lot of young women hear in that circumstance, which is your life is over. And I decided I didn't want that to be the case for me. I was a little bullheaded and went on and got my college degree from the College of William & Mary in Williamsburg, Virginia. My daughter was a little under 3 months old when I started as a full-time freshman, and went on and graduated in 4 years like any other student, actually with high honors, and then got my master's from George Mason University. It was my passion and purpose to make sure that this was not a rare occurrence, and particularly here in the DC area where we have a teen pregnancy rate that's more than double the national average. I want to see more teen parents in our area going on to be successful and stable. And so that's what we're doing with Generation Hope. We're in the 2nd year of our scholar program, and to date we've given out about $25,000 in tuition assistance to teen parents who are pursuing degrees, 2- and 4-year degrees, ranging from cybersecurity to business, to law enforcement, criminal justice, and it's just been an amazing, amazing journey thus far. Right now, we have just ended our application cycle for the incoming class, so this will be the 3rd class of teen parents to enter our program. We received a record number of applications, over 30 applications from teen mothers who want to be college graduates and want to be a part of our program. So what our program model does is match those teen parents with sponsors in the community who provide emotional and financial support to increase the likelihood that they will graduate. And so we have information in the back of the room about becoming a sponsor and what that entails. It is a very direct, giving, personal experience for people who are tired of kind of writing a check to an organization, not knowing where it's going. You get to meet that individual, you get to see the effects of your giving at work in someone's life. So I encourage you to come to our table. We have our Steve Harvey show clip for you back there. That always gets people's attention, and plenty of materials. So please feel free to stop by.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Outstanding. And continuing on this path of dynamic women, we have a wonderful leader from the National Bar Association. That's right, I'm looking at you, Donna. Come right up here where they can see you. And the National Bar Association was started in 1925 when African Americans could not be a part of the American Bar Association. And for many of us, it's afforded us an opportunity to build our practices and to grow. I've certainly been a great beneficiary of the National Bar.
And I have as well. I've been with the National Bar for a little over a year. My name is Yvette Johnson. I'm the Director of Operations and Business Development. We have been blessed to have this partnership with Beverage and Diamond, more importantly with Mr. Wilson. And what our mission here is to make sure that we collaborate and have an understanding of what our purpose is. And our purpose is to obviously get our point across, but also to help each other along the way. So this is one of many series to come. And we welcome you all and hope that you will continue to benefit and also show up like many of you have. We have other people that are waiting outside to benefit from this series of discussions. So welcome everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And as we get started, there's one other person I'd like to thank, and that's Brandon Harrell. Stand up, Brandon, so they can see you. Good looking young fellow. I used to look like that. Even I don't take that. But you oftentimes wonder, where do good ideas come from? And this particular great idea came from Brandon, who's an associate in our law firm. Very proud of him. And he made the point that associates are trying to make their way in these firms. And we need to be able to talk about some of the challenges that we're facing. And tonight you're going to get that chance. And tonight we have, I think, 4 as dynamic persons in the practice of law as you can find anywhere. To my immediate left is Richard Smith. If you looked at his bio, you'd find that he's published almost 100 articles. He's a fantastic white-collar criminal defense practice. I had the privilege of seeing him practice. I was something of a quasi-judge in this bounty case for the National Football League. Richard represented the players, and suffice it to say, he did to several of the league's witnesses what Zorro used to do on the back of Sergeant Garcia's pants. And he's just absolutely dynamic and just superb. And to his left is Monica Parham, who stands in no one's shadow. She's an accomplished partner in her own right in her firm, and now she's in charge of diversity for her firm. What Kroll is doing is really unique. She's a highly sought-after speaker on a wide range of subjects, almost all of which have to do with attorney development. And so if you're interested in knowing how to become a leader in the bar, she's the president of the Women's Bar Association. I would submit among the 1 or 2 most dynamic groups, period. NBA's right there. But the Women's Bar is quite dynamic, and it's in large part because of Monica. So she has a lot to offer, and because she's done it herself, but she also has a vision beyond her firm. And to her left is another young man that I used to look like, Monty Cooper. And I was like those young guys, rich enough that you're not young. You're closer to me than I am. And Monty is with the Sedgwick law firm. He's a superb environmental lawyer. I'm still trying to figure out how I can steal him from Beverage and Diamond, and I'm working on that, Monty. And but he's also published a number of articles. He's most recently published an article on this fracking issue, which, as you know, that's going to be a game changer as it relates to oil, gas, if you will, in the world. And so we have a person, not yet 40. The reason I know is I think he's going to be one of those 40 under 40 people. I know I recommended him, and I think he's awfully dynamic. And to Monty's left is a woman whose name describes her entirely, Grace States. and it's the grace that describes it. And she, if any of you read the Washington Post magazine, they listed the top 100 lawyers in Washington, D.C. There's one of them. And I know of none better. She manages her law firm, Morgan Lewis Law Firm. She has several hundred lawyers here in Washington alone. She has a labor and employment practice, which is the envy of everyone. She only takes the big cases, the class action, where there's thousands and thousands of plaintiffs, and then she wins. And,
Only way to do it.
and so, again, we have a wonderful panel. We could not do better. Just remind them and remind you that we are videotaping this tonight. So let's not be like that news reporter in South Dakota. You just never know who's recording. And we're going to ask them to speak very briefly, about 5 minutes each. Each of them could speak for several hours and hold forth on this. But we really want to hear from you. So I expect you to talk. I expect you to raise your questions, ask the tough questions, disagree with them. They'll probably disagree among themselves in a friendly way. But without further ado, I'm going to start with Richard, who's to my immediate left.
Thank you very much, Dan, and thank you for your kind words. I am truly honored to be on a panel of such outstanding colleagues. You guys don't understand, it's not often that I get to be on a panel with other prominent African-American lawyers that are doing very well, that are making progress in their firm. I'm at Fulbright and Jaworski. We've got about 800 lawyers in our firm. Out of the 800 lawyers, there's about 300 partners. Out of 300 partners, there's only 6 African-American lawyers. So I look in this room, look at this panel, and I say, 2 more bodies, and I'll be back at home at my law firm. If I can impart anything to you, it is this: become an expert at what you do. Become an expert at what you do. In my practice, our goal was to become the best white-collar shop in the United States, which means we publish a lot. I mean, if you want people to find out who you are, start writing, start publishing, and you will get speaking events. I get a lot of speaking engagements based on the publications that I publish. As a result of one publication, I ended up being appointed to the public company's board because the CEO read an article about healthcare fraud and had a healthcare fraud problem and flew in to see me. Had I never written that article, I would have never met the CEO. Be willing to go the extra mile. Don't settle for the good enough standard. On my team, I expect my lawyers, the associates, to bill $2,300 a year. I personally bill 2,400 hours of billable time a year myself, plus I do the 600 hours of business development. Okay?
You mean the business doesn't just walk in the door?
I wish you did. I'll give you a good example. I was speaking with clients in Chesapeake Bay over the last 2 days. Got a phone call at 12 a.m. from a prospective client in Australia. Well, if you understand the time zone difference, 12 a.m. here is 2 p.m. there. Some of my colleagues said, why would you take that phone call? If I don't take it, somebody will take it, and I'm going to get the business. Okay? So our motto in my firm is, we have bags packed, we'll travel, calling the moment's notice, and we're there to take care of your problem. You have to get outstanding clients. So you have to do something that makes you different than everybody else. So we have 3 E's. I want excellent work, done in an economy way, that's effective, and gets the client the result that they want. And so when they have what I call the 3E experience, the client comes back for more. And so, I have this writing joke with one of my partners who's been at the firm. He's the biggest rainmaker. And our joke goes like this: we're here together in the present. You were the past, we're in the present together, I'm the future. This is the largest rainmaker in the firm. And so we have this friendly rivalry between the 2 of us because he believes in generating business. And he generates about $10 million in business a year. In 6 years' time, I've become the 2nd or 3rd largest rainmaker in my firm.
Of 800 lawyers.
Of 800 lawyers. And so me and this guy, we have this friendly agreement. We can fight amongst ourselves, but if I want to get business, he's my biggest ally. Because he understands his business. If you're sitting behind your desk waiting for someone to knock on your door to give you something, you don't see that long time. So in other words, you go out in the street, you find the business, and you bring it in. So I tell associates, don't sit behind your desk waiting for work. Find the outstanding partners that has a big book of business, has the dynamic practice, and seek them out and ask for the work. And if it means having to stay up late at night to get everything done, you've sown seeds for your future. And you want to do a good enough job so that he'll refer to other partners that have business. And think about finding areas of practice that are going to be hot for a long time. Don't pick an area that's going to be cold in 2 or 3 years because you'll be unemployed and out the door. I mean, understand this, you're going into a business. You're going to be judged on your financial performance. You don't make it rain, you become what's called a service partner, and you serve at the rainmaker's pleasure. You want to control your destiny, develop the ability to generate your own business by developing your own brand, by being very good at what you do. I'll stop with that.
Amen. Monica?
Well, one of the key things that I think that you have to do at every stage in your career, and that is to add value. And adding value may look different depending on whether or not you're a first-year associate, you're a fifth-year associate, you're a junior partner, or you're an equity partner. But the principle remains the same, regardless of what level you are. Take a step back and think about, what can I do to further the cause? What can I do to best serve the client? And again, as a first-year associate, it may be listening, it may be learning, it may be saying, okay, what angle do I have? And there's something that you can learn, and there's value that you can bring regardless of where you are. I know a lot of junior attorneys will think, well, I've been assigned to due diligence, I've been assigned to document review, I'm not going on client pitches, I'm not making rain yet, so what is my value? I'm just a fungible billing unit. And once you start to get into that mindset, it's a downward cycle that's very hard to break. You have to think about, what can I do based on the level that I'm at? If I'm in charge of running a document review, then I'm going to be the best document reviewer. I'm going to be very efficient. I'm going to think of new ways to do things. I'm going to spot issues that the partners can't spot because they're not looking at the materials. That's how you start to leverage your value within a law firm. Think about where you are and what you have to offer. And a big component of doing that is developing networks. And I think a lot of people look at developing networks as being networking. Developing networks is not going out to a cocktail hour and handing out your business card. It is developing concentric circles of people to whom you can bring value and from whom you can gain information. And it has two components. There's an internal component and an external component. One of the things that I think that people do is they tend to focus so much on what's going on outside of their respective firms that they don't build the networks that they need to build within their firms. You need to build the networks if you're a junior associate with more senior associates so that you learn who is the rainmaker, who is the go-to partner in the future, what are my firm's expansion plans, what are our core areas of business, where are we looking to break into the business, and again, taking ownership of those things. If you sit in your office and you just wait for assignments to come to you, you can do a fabulous job. And that'll get you to mid-level associate, but that's where people start to diverge. And it's the people who started building the internal networks, because that's knowing the business. It's knowing the client's business. It's knowing your institution's business. That's very, very important. And when I talk to a lot of junior associates, I find out that they don't understand, what is your law firm's leverage? What does partnership look like? Do you have 1 tier or 2 tiers? Which tier do you think you want to be in? What is the road to each of those tiers? So you need to develop your internal networks, even as you're developing your external networks. Because yes, the general counsel of your client, of your corporate clients is in fact a client, but that senior associate who gave you the assignment is your client. That person who the senior associate is talking to is your client. That's the source of your work. So do good work, but don't overlook that chain, because I think there are a lot of people who will say, oh, I'm going to bypass this person here and go directly to this person, and you don't know who's gatekeeper. So you have to develop emotional intelligence. Understand, what are the dynamics within your firm? How do you navigate within the firm? How do you get good assignments within the firm? I think that the tendency is to think that all firms are just alike. They're not alike. what is the assignment process in your firm? Do you have a centralized assignment process? I know some firms, for example, WilmerHale, they've taken the assignment process out of the direct hands of attorneys, and they have people who actually facilitate the assignment process. Do you have a staffing partner model? Is it an eat what you kill system? Because getting the best assignments for the best clients is critical, but it's going to look very, very different depending on the context. And you're going to make a misstep if you don't understand what that context is. Once you develop the internal network, then focus on developing the external network. And again, it isn't just going up to the biggest person with the biggest name. Develop all sorts of networks. Develop networks with your peers. Develop networks up, develop networks laterally, and a network that I think is very often overlooked, don't necessarily limit your networks to lawyers. Because you never know where business is going to come from. You never know where opportunities are going to come from. So you need to keep all of those networks fresh. I know when I moved from litigation to diversity, and I litigated for 12 years before I moved into my diversity and professional development role, the main person I reached out to was somebody I graduated from college with 16 years before. Had not spoken with this person since. She did what I thought I wanted to do. She said, oh, my boss, head of human capital management at Goldman Sachs, does what you're doing. He's a former lawyer. You should definitely meet. Catch, he's in London. And this goes to seeking out opportunities and taking risks. So London is a flight away. Took my frequent flyer miles, took myself to London, did an informational interview. It was the day after the terror plot was uncovered, so I didn't have my suit. My luggage was somewhere. I'm lucky that I had my shoes. That was in August. I started transitioning out of litigation in September, and I moved into my role full-time in January. So you will always have those forks in the road where you have to take risks. And that risk may be an area that's developing, because that's where change is. You've got to be prospective. You can't be retroactive. You can't look at what yesterday's hot area was. It may be moving to another part of the country. It may be working with that tough partner who has the book of business that nobody else wants to work with because they'll work you 2,300 billable hours a year. It may be speaking up at that meeting where everybody is silent and you know the answer and you've got to speak up. It may be being the only person of color, the only woman, etc., who is in a particular room in a particular situation. But definitely take the risk, go outside your comfort zone, build your networks, be proactive, and take career ownership.
And I'm going to repeat a lot of what's been said, because this is fantastic, the comments. First, thank you all for being here, and it's great to see the crowd here, because the law is an interesting time, I think, in the law, where you've got a lot of lawyers, and you've got a tough time even breaking into the law firm market. So, and you've got a lot of competition because of the number of attorneys that are out there. So there's a lot of sort of insecurity I think people can have, and just kind of sort of figuring out what the process is all about. It's tough. So you all are really doing the first things right. So I just wanted to just quickly say that. I think the most important thing you can take away, I think from what everyone's been saying and what I'll say, is just to be proactive in everything that you do. I mean, every assignment, from being networking, obviously, to being good at your substantive area. Just think about what I can do to help advance whatever the cause is, advance whatever the issue is, or the project is. And that'll help you. And just kind of have that in mind. I sort of take the mind of I'm going to be aggressive in anything that I kind of do. That's sort of the way I think about it. I might listen to the music to kind of get me going for a particular day. But the idea is to be proactive. What I've tried to do in my own career is kind of think about the law in two phases. You've heard a lot of it already. It's substantively, you got to know what you're talking about. In order to be that rainmaker, you got to be able to talk the talk when you have to, particularly for clients, large corporate clients in particular. So that's doing great work that you're given. Certainly, if you can take pro bono assignments, because it's tough as a younger lawyer in litigation, for example, you're doing a lot of document review, which do it well, and I'll come back to that in a second. But you'll want to use opportunities to get up in court and to speak and that sort of thing. If you do transactional work with a lot of nonprofits that are looking for help, but that allows you to kind of learn substantively what you're doing. But in the case of document review and all those things, really do those things with gusto. Be proactive in those things. got a privilege log. I used to hate doing a lot of privilege logs. I haven't done one in a while, but I did my time doing them. And I've seen personally people, experienced lawyers really mess up a privilege log. And for in front of a judge. And so anyway, so you want to do those small things right. I don't care how small it is. And oftentimes what I found, and I was doing a lot of document review, I would take that time. I couldn't bill this time. They gave us a little credit for it. But, I would take that time to write. I wanted to do a little bit more environmental regulatory work. So while I had my great hours reviewing documents, I took that Saturday and Sunday over a couple weekends and wrote about the Clean Air Act in particular this winter. And I was able to then take that to one of the partners. I really wanted to break into. She didn't necessarily want me because she didn't know how much I knew, and she didn't want to have to write off my time and all that. But she saw that I knew a little bit about this particular area that she was very much involved in, and that's how I was able to do more of the environmental regulatory work. So, you can break the monotony of just the day-to-day grind in litigation I'm thinking about, but in any of the practice areas. So think about that, and that's good for substance. Then also, too, networking and branding yourself. I like to say this, and I tell people this, and even though he's here, I'll just say it, not to flatter him too much, but I had a conversation with Ben Wilson, this is probably 4 or 5 years ago now, and it was one of the best conversations about the law I ever had. And what we talked about, I'm going to paraphrase what he said. He said a lot. But I took from my conversation. I've got the cameras. Keep them on. No, but when you're thinking about networking and branding, never. What was it? Never waste a business card. And when I mean that, everybody you meet, you don't have to pass out 100 cards at an event, but you may pass out 4 or 5. Send a quick email saying, hey, man, it was great talking with you. It doesn't have to be a lot. Just something quick as soon as you get back to y'all. Or maybe on a weekend, like a Saturday or something, you got a little free time. And what I've tried to do, just kind of taking what Ben and we talked about, was divide those folks up into people who you want to sort of get to know. You've got your corporate counsel folks here. You've got your more business types over there. You've got your nonprofit people there. And when you do good things, you don't be shy. You write that great article or you're recognized for something. You send it out. Say, hey, this is something I'm doing. Just thought you might want to take a look at it. Most people probably don't care one way or the other. Probably go open the email. But folks actually do read those emails, and they read what's going on and about what you're doing. And then you're in their mind for something else, either it be business, or there's a great lawyer, environmental lawyer in this town who I've been able to establish a good relationship with in terms of boards related to the environment, and they were looking for people, younger people, to participate and be active. And I was sort of on his mind in large part because I just sort of kept up with him in that way. So never waste a business card, and be proactive in all that you do. I think those are perhaps some of the highlights, and then I can answer any questions.
Well, it's hard to go after this group. I don't know what I'm going to say, but I am so happy to see all of you here. As Ben said, I'm at Morgan Lewis, and since Richard gave you a little advertisement for his firm, I'm going to give you one for mine. We have about 1,600 lawyers in 25 offices around the world. We've got about 300 in D.C., and I have the pleasure, sometimes the headache, of managing that office. I have a few of my associates are here, and I want to thank them for showing up. Make no mistake about it. This whole law firm business is hard work, okay? And I know, and I see a lot of women in the audience. I have 2 children, so I want you to know. I have 2 kids. They are grown, they are normal, they survived. Kids are very, very, they can make it, believe it or not. But I started at Morgan Lewis as a summer associate, and I've been there almost 30 years. And it was hard work. And I came along at a time where there was no talk about flexibility, flexible work arrangements. I understand that is important, but with all the technology that we have now, you can't be any more flexible, really. So, I mean, all I'm saying is, you know, we got Sheryl Sandberg talking about lean in, lean out. Put all that aside. This is hard work. And we as, you know, African American lawyers, other diverse lawyers, lawyers of color, we have to be serious about this. This whole leaning out, leaning in, yeah, it's nice talk, but we got to lean in, we got to work all the time. Okay, and I'm okay with saying that on videotape because it's a fact. The other thing I want to say is, you know, I know that all of you coming along, because I felt the same way. You went to, you know, nice schools and all that stuff. You came in, you were, you know, doing well in your class. You got this chip on your shoulder when you walk in. Leave those chips at the door. Okay, all this has got to go before you come into these institutions, because law firms are very interesting institutions. You know, Richard and I are managing these places, and Ben's managing it, and it's a whole nother world. And so leave that at the door. Couple of things, and a lot of people have said it, but you've got to be visible, you got to be energetic, you got to be dependable, you got to be engaged, you got to be curious, you got to be a team player, you got to have a presence without being cocky and arrogant. Okay? And what do I mean by that? You always want to seem like you are engaged in everything that you do. When I came in here tonight, this chair was down like this. And you're going to walk in many conference rooms with clients and partners where the chair is going to be like this. First thing I do, I go in any room. I pull it up and pull up to the table, okay? Engage. That's right. Okay? Just sort of sitting back and down in the seat. That doesn't exude confidence. Okay? I have an associate come in the office and sit back like that. And that doesn't exude confidence to me. I'm not saying be arrogant or cocky, right? You gotta have presence. You also don't want to isolate yourself. I've seen too many of our young associates come in. They come in the morning, they close their doors because they want to get work done. We all want to get work done, but you don't do that. You close your door, that sends a message. Okay? I don't want people walking in. I don't want to be a part of this. And I know some may say, well, I need the door closed because I got to quiet to get work done. You got to get a different working style because people will talk about that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, we have to make people feel comfortable with us as diverse lawyers, okay? As opposed to the burden being on them, okay, to make us feel comfortable. It doesn't work like that. We have got to make people feel that we belong in these places, we can do the work, we can deliver. So whether you like it or not, we have to make people feel comfortable. Invest in yourself. Take charge of your destiny and your future. What do I mean by that? If you're just coming in every day doing the work that Richard or I or Ben gives you, you're not investing in yourself. What do you know about the clients who you're working for? What do you know about the industries of the clients that you're working for? Are you reading the Wall Street Journal in the morning to find out what's going on with your clients? And I don't care what level of lawyer you are. You can be reading the Wall Street Journal, you see something going on with one of the clients that you're working with, coming in to see me or Ben or Richard and saying, hey, I saw in the Wall Street Journal this morning, bingo. I'm like, yeah, this is a good associate. There you go. Because this is somebody who is adding value. Maybe I had a bad morning and didn't have a chance to read the Wall Street Journal. But you should be doing those types of things. That's what I mean about investing in yourself. And I think somebody else said it, find your value. I guess it was Monica. Find the value that you offer to the firm. And then brand yourself. Okay, one of the best things that happened to me, I spent almost half of the time that I was at Morgan Lewis in our general litigation group. I don't have anything against general litigators, but general litigators are dime a dozen, right? It's large. It's not a specialty. You're just a general litigator, okay? And it was at a point in time where I had already made partner, but once you make partner, you really got pressure to bring in the business, because you don't want to be a service partner. Service partner, you know, first one out the door when things get rough. Okay? So, because of some things that were going on with the general litigation group, I was thinking about leaving at one point in time because I just didn't like some direction. And finally, it dawned on me, yeah, we got a big labor and employment practice here. That's our brand. That's our marquee. Okay, one of our best known practices. A few years before I started thinking about that, Title VII had been amended to provide for a jury trial. Okay? There wasn't one lawyer in our labor and employment practice in D.C. who could try a jury case. They had not tried, didn't have to. The trials were all bench trials. I was in litigation, I had trial experience. So I transferred into our litigation, into our labor and employment group, and as they said, the rest is history. That's thinking about your future. That's saying, how do I distinguish myself? How do I brand myself? And Ben talked about the class action. There isn't one major class action that is filed in this country where I don't at least get the opportunity to talk to the general counsel about the possibility of handling that case. May not win them all, but you can't win them if you don't get in the door.
Thank you.
Right? I can get in the door. May not come home with it, but I can get in the door. So think about the firms that you're in. What practices do they have where I can make a name for myself? Mine's doing it with environmental. I mean, what can I do? How can I distinguish myself? How can I be somebody that clients are going to want? It's going to be calling you. So that's
Boy,
That's all I
this is
have.
exciting. Let's give them a round of applause. Sure, then you're going to ask questions. I'm going to start with this good-looking young man right here at the end of the table.
Oh, man.
And I'm going to ask you to very quickly introduce yourselves, tell us where you are, and about 25 seconds each. Go.
David Morrow. I'm in my third year at Buckley Sandler's, a financial services law firm near Georgetown, and I am from North Carolina.
All right. Where in North Carolina?
Greensboro.
I'm from Winston-Salem.
Lovely young woman right there. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Deanna Lewis. I'm a fair lending attorney at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and I actually went to college with Ashley.
Oh my gosh, that's my daughter.
I'm from Washington, D.C. originally.
I'll talk to you.
Good evening. My name is Precious Boone, and I am a contract attorney right now. I'm from Flint, Michigan.
All right.
Hi everyone, I'm Stacy Sublet. I'm an associate here at Beveridge Diamond, and I actually, Precious is my co-clerk at the DC Court of Appeals, and we clerked for Judge Anna Blackberry.
Great judge.
Good evening, I'm Kendra Norwood. I'm an associate second year at Hollingsworth LLP, which is a couple floors up in this building. I'm originally from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and this is my second career, sorts, because I went to law school at night while I was working in federal government at NASA doing legislative affairs.
All right. She's from the Red Stick. Yes, sir.
My name's Paul Waters. I'm a 2L, or I guess rising 3L, almost at George Washington University, and I'm from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
My alma mater.
Outstanding. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Vince Amanadu. I'm finishing up at GW Law in a couple of weeks, and I'll be working at Linklaters in August.
Oh, wonderful.
Outstanding. They were
Go
with us
GW.
last week for International Environmental Law Conference. Yes, sir.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ada Sidibe. I am a first-year associate at Green Law Group and Employee Benefits Boutique.
Outstanding. Yes, sir.
My name is Robert Brown. I'm with Tower Legal Solutions here in Washington, D.C. in business development. Phenomenal panel. I've learned more in the past 20 minutes than I have probably in the past year. Thank you so much. Looking forward to meeting everyone.
I'm going to send you a bill for that.
Hi, I'm Ashley James. I'm a third-year associate at Kirkland & Ellis, and I'm a native Washingtonian.
I'm Charles Downing. I'm a late arbitrator full-time law professor for 12 years, and I found the presentation very informative and interesting. I mentored quite a few lawyers myself. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Jerome Jordan. I'm a first-year associate at Morgan, Lewis & Bockius, and I'm from Arizona.
All right, he's here on time to support the boss.
He came when he was waiting for me live.
Hi, I'm Jocelyn Catino. I'm in my 6th year of practicing labor and employment with Grace and Morgan Lewis, and I'm from Richmond, Virginia.
Outstanding.
My name's Ignacio Sandoval. I'm at Morgan Lewis. I'm a 6th year there, but I almost feel like a first year because I was in government up until about December. And I'm from Los Angeles.
Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Arian Cannon. I am originally from Columbia, South Carolina. I'm with the District of Columbia Government at the Office of Employee Appeals.
Welcome.
Good evening. I'm Charles Monterio. I am an associate, intellectual property associate at Dixon Shapiro, and this is home. I'm from Alexandria, Virginia.
Outstanding. Dad.
Good evening, my name is Daphne Rubin Vega, and I'm a first year associate here at Beverage and Diamond, and I'm from New York City.
Good evening, my name is Tori Connor, and I'm at the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, and I'm from Lakeland, Florida.
And she's a dynamic student leader. She was the head of Boston, actually, weren't you?
The Attorney General.
All right, the Attorney General. The top lawyer for the top young lawyer. And wonderful student as well. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jennifer Glimmer. I'm at the Committee on the Judiciary, and I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York.
Fourth largest city?
Hi, I'm Alicia Burnswright, 2nd year associate at Vincent & Elkins. I'm originally from Las Vegas, Nevada.
Hi, I'm Skylar Woods. I'm actually not an attorney. I'm considering law school at UT in Michigan this fall, and I'm glad to be here.
Welcome.
Don't
let him talk you out of it. He mentioned earlier. And let's start here with this.
Hi, I'm Valerie Lomas, originally from Baton Rouge, Louisiana as well. And I am currently at DEA to start there this past fall.
Welcome.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Montplaisir Hamilton. I'm a patent attorney here in Washington, D.C. I work for a law firm called Shapiro Bacon. It's Kansas City based, but I work in the D.C. office. Thank you all for your time. Appreciate the advice.
Thank you for being here.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ulrich Ifan. I am a litigation case manager at Wells Fargo. Apologize for being late. I came from Columbia and it took an hour and a half.
All right, we're glad you came all the way from fought the rain, yes.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Samantha Cody. I'm from Houston, Texas, and I'm a compliance manager for DC Public Schools.
Well, that's a great place at Houston, Texas.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Brandon Morrell, and I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana. I'm a 2nd year associate here at Beverage and Diamond. And I just want to thank you to the panelists for coming out tonight.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jaleel Dozier. I'm from DC, and I'm a first-year associate at Lefwich and Lightway.
All right, outstanding young man. I remember meeting him when he was thinking about what he was going to do. And now to see what they're doing is really thrilling. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Enrico McClary. I'm from here in DC, and I'm actually a sports agent.
All right. Which sport?
Basketball.
Basketball. All right. Who's your favorite quarterback? Very good answer. Yes.
Do not let it rest.
Hi, I'm Leah Watson. I'm a 2nd year at Baker Hostetler. I'm from Little Rock, Arkansas.
And what type of work do you do? Yes.
Commercial litigation.
Outstanding.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Stacy Gonsalves. I'm in the Government Contracts Group at Wiley Bryan, and I'm a first year associate, and I'm also from Houston, Texas.
Well.
Good evening. Thank you so much for your time. I am also from Houston, Texas, unapologetically from the South. I am at the White House.
All right. Do you know Yates High School in Houston?
Yes.
All right.
Across the street from my law school.
All right.
Good evening. My name is Evelina Renee. I'm a first year of Rising Tuella GW Law. Also the Director of Alumni Affairs for the Mid-Atlantic region of the Black Law Students Association.
Outstanding.
So hope to meet a lot of you and network in the upcoming year.
Well, we're glad to hear. Did any of the ladies out there from the National Bar want to come in and introduce themselves briefly? Come on. You got to stand up. If there's anything good that happens tonight, it's generally their fault.
Hi, my name is Diane Younger, and I am the Field Coordinator at the National Bar Association.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Camille Bryan, and I'm the
Director of Programming for the National Bar Association.
And again, Camille is our mastermind. We want to thank her again. And the wonderful person, Yolanda, introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Yolanda Rush. I work again here in the IT group at Beverage and Diamond. Welcome.
And she's wonderful.
Thank you.
So why did I make everybody introduce themselves like we're in Sunday school back home? Because you never know who's sitting next to you, you know? And that man or woman might change your life. You know, I met my wife in law school, sit next to her. I just like to sit next to her. Took me a long time to talk. This was stage fright. But I guess you all won't have stage fright. Give us some questions, too. Not all of our questions. Yes, sir.
My question is,
Oh, yes, ma'am.
and it's to each and every one of you, what was the life-changing experience that made you say, I gotta make a difference within myself as well as my profession? What happened at work? One instance that happened at work.
I'm going to ask
that changed.
Monica, because she's a person who's made some changes in her life and chose to make them, and she started revealing some of that earlier.
Right. I was, as I mentioned, I was a litigator for 12 years. Like Grace, I'm a lifer at my firm. I've been at my firm for 18 years. Started at my firm as a summer associate. And I noticed as I was going out and working on various cases that there were very few people who looked like me involved in any aspect of the case. And just had an epiphany one day, and I thought, you know what, I can continue actually litigating the cases, or having had the law firm experience, having been a summer associate, having risen through the ranks, I can leverage that knowledge, leverage that information, and use it to help other people so that I don't continue to encounter a situation and others coming behind me don't encounter a situation where they're the only, where they're the first, where they're one of five, where they're fill in the blank. So that's one of the reasons why, one of the personal reasons I decided to make the transformation. Also, Grace mentioned that law firms are unique creatures. And I actually found myself more as interested in the Harvard Business Review as I was in Legal Times. And I put those two things together and realized, you know what? Law firms are very poorly run businesses. We were at the point where lawyers were going through this whole discussion, are we a profession or are we a business? We don't really have that discussion anymore because it's clearly a business. But people didn't transition their mindsets into a business mindset. So you had people who were trying to develop a portfolio of human capital without knowing what human capital was or what to do with it. Continuing to do things the same way they had always been done, and I looked at how that was impacting women and people of color and kind of thought, you know what, if you continue to do things the way they've always been done, then you're excluding women and people of color from every point of the power structure, especially the power end of the power structure. And I had enough seniority where I said, you know what, that's the direction I want to go in.
Now, Monty's the father of 22-month-old twin daughters, so I have a feeling I know what motivates him. Go ahead.
Amen. Amen, Brother Wilson. Yeah, you know that, yeah, you can stay up some nights and you're hearing two kids crying at the same time. That'll change your life.
That's why you look sleepy right now.
I'm operating, I don't know, it's just on air right now. You know, I'm on fumes, but you know, I think I can't say it was one moment, but I just think as you kind of go along the process, and you all are beginning to do that now, you're further along, you do begin to understand that, and you all open with these can of worms, I would say, you know, all partners are not made alike, and so you do have your rainmakers, and then you do have your service partners, and you want to be obviously you want to be very respectful to your service partners, and what they do is fantastic. And that's a good thing. But if you're going to control your destiny, you know, and if you go to law school, you got an A-type personality anyway. That's almost a prerequisite. But you got to understand if you're going to kind of be in this thing for the long term, you want to be in a position where you're controlling your own destiny. So I say it sort of in a gingerly way to suggest that, you know, you're going to have to work really hard. And so for me, it was sort of, you know, how do I put myself in a position where I'm going to be very happy in 20, 30 years? So I had to really get out there, and I'm you know, gregarious guy. I can, you know, talk to folks, but really think about this networking and branding stuff in a very real way, palpable way. And talking to Ben, it was great. I mentioned that conversation because it was right around the time I'd been kind of thinking about it and kind of provided me a blueprint, really. And you can do it outside your firm, that's important, but also within your firm as well. You got to dig deep. You got to kind of know who the players are. And in our firm, we've got 400 or so lawyers across the country, so it's not just staying in D.C. It's figuring out, who's the big guy in New Jersey or in San Francisco, and figuring out ways to interact with them so that, again, 30 years from now, you can look back and you can have real control. And so you can say rainmaking, but I think control is important.
Richard, before you answer this, you went to Alabama A&M, right?
Yes, I did.
Okay, now that's located in Huntsville, right?
That's
We used to
correct.
call it Normal.
No, that's still.
I just want to let you know that I've been there. So, where did all that come from? From Normal all the way to number 2, and I'm the future. I think that's what you said, didn't you say? Am I the future? Good too, I man.
I'm one of these that believe you have what you say. Okay? If you speak and work hard enough, you can do it. My mother raised me. She had 3 rules. You're going to go to church, you're going to school, and you're going to work hard. And, we never took no for an answer. For me, when someone says no, I've asked the wrong person. No today doesn't mean no tomorrow. I'm going to keep pushing until I get this door open. And you want to be the best. I mean, when I first left DOJ after 19 years and joined the firm, that lasted only 18 months. And here's why. Because I had this business plan. And my business plan is real simple. I need to, 1, be the best service partner I can be. 2, I need to get the low-hanging fruit, which meant any existing clients, any partner clients that needed my service, I need to provide that. And then 3, I need to build a network outside of my firm to get business. Went to our first business retreat, and the partners told me, we don't feel comfortable giving you white collar work because you get a bad result, I'll lose my client. I'm like, well, then there's no future for my practice at your firm. And the managing partner said, but you can't find a job somewhere else. Within 4 days, I was gone. I mean, because the next day I got back, I spent the time, one of my partners on my team knew the people at Fulbright. I didn't know they'd been talking to him about you guys should come work for us. And so we go in the elevator, and the managing partner of Fulbright says, look, we don't have a white collar group here. We want to build one. Would you consider bringing your entire group to Fulbright? And so within a week's time, I moved my group from one firm to Fulbright, and the first day I got there, a big case broke.
First day, a
big case broke. So get that right time, at the right time. And my best friend, was it was his client. And when the case came in, he goes, I'm going to do it this way. And I'm like, no, you're not going to do it that way, because if you do it that way, clients going to go to jail, and we may go to jail. And so we had this real difference of opinion that I raised all the way up to my firm is run by the executive committee. You got a chairman of the executive committee and the GC, and then you have the rest of the committees. And so I was so adamant about how this was going to be handled that we ended up within the first week in front of the executive committee having this debate about how do you handle this case. But when I knew I was right on the law and right on the facts, I wasn't going to back down because I was just a new person in this firm. And so I won that debate, but I also won their respect because he knows what he's doing, he'll be an advocate for what he believes in, so we can introduce him to our clients. And so Fulbright's position that if we have a case that breaks, let's make sure he gets in front of the client to pitch for the business. And I have this rule, if you're going to pitch, you have to bring the bacon home. And Grace is right, I don't get every opportunity, but most of my work comes from corporate America. All of my clients don't look like me. I'm typically the only person in the room that has a dark hue, but I want to instill such a level of confidence that they get comfortable, because think about it. Most of my clients are boards, audit committees, people who are 5, 10 years, 20 years my senior. They never had to hire someone that looked like me to deal with the better company case. So I have to walk in the room and establish a presence so they're comfortable hiring me. Because think about it, the GC hires me and the case goes badly, the career's over. Let's just be real frank about it. So you want to get to, if you do one case well, my clients become my best source of new business because they all sit on different boards and they tell people about it. So I try to take the position that there's nothing I can't do if I put my mind to it. Now I may have to stay up later than most people. I may have to work it a lot longer, but I'm willing to put in the time because when I get in the courtroom, I didn't get to go to some of those great schools, not great schools. See, I went to State University, very proud of University of Florida, but I never said nobody would ever outwork me. I would do whatever it takes, but when I walked in that courtroom, I would be the brightest person in the courtroom. And I just worked at it.
My favorite quarterback says the separation's in the preparation. Grace, what was your moment?
Well, I guess I have an experience and a moment.
Yes.
And I'll be brief. The experience goes back to what Richard said, which was the way that I was raised. And I mean, I grew up in the poor section of Philadelphia. Morgan Lewis was about 10 blocks up the way, okay? And you know, I had a mom who worked in the factory. It was just the two of us, and she made sure it was church, school, and you better work hard, okay? So I knew from that experience, based on what she did for me to get me, you know, to where she got me to, I had to do something that was going to be good, and I had to give back. So that's a life experience, okay? The moment was probably the first day I got to Morgan Lewis, almost 30 years ago. There was no one at the firm, at least in Phil, because I started in our Philadelphia office, that looked like me. There was a lateral partner, African American, who had come over from another firm just a few days before I arrived. And the chairman of the firm at that time, oh, I forgot one other piece. The firm had just won a lawsuit, a race discrimination lawsuit, in which the only African American woman that they had ever had sued them as an associate for race discrimination. And the judge ruled against her about a month before I got there. Okay? So I arrived along with one other African American associate, J.P. Potter. I'll never forget him. He went on to be general counsel of Del Monte, became a wonderful client. But the chairman took the two of us out for lunch our first day. And where did we go? To the Union League. The Union League had just started admitting women and blacks into that club. So that whole sort of experience, coming in on the heels of that discrimination suit, nobody else looking like me, and JP and I sort of looking at each other saying, what did we get ourselves into? And going into that Union League, right there I said, I can do this. I'm going to show these folks that I can do this. And from there on, it was just that dedication and hard work. May sound hokey, but that was the experience.
You know, it's interesting. I was watching Richard's reaction to every time Grace speaks. You'd be a great deacon. Preacher's preaching, and he wants to amen.
She's strong. She's speaking so much.
Yes, she is.
Because
yes,
so many
she
people
is.
think, well, I'm just going to get by on my look and take it easy. This is, it makes a difference. I'm not crazy. Because I tell folks, you have to work very hard to be successful in this. I mean, you make your life. And by that I mean, do what you need to do to be ready for the opportunities. When opportunity presents itself, you can knock down the bar. So when I hear Grace took on saying, it's not just me. She's lived that experience. Because a lot of us haven't lived that experience. Us folks, that no one's going to give you anything, guys. They're not. If you work hard, you do good work. I pick associates. I mean, my associates have gotten real smart. They know my peculiarities. So they know if something comes in, someone's reading for every case that breaks. And they put teams together. So when I come in, here's the developments of the night, here's the article we're going to write, what do you think about this? And we pump them out like a machine. People are like, you're crazy. I've got to get a competitive advantage somehow. I got to get out in the marketplace to market myself. And they put themselves in the position to do that. So I don't have to tell associates, draft articles. I get 5 or 6 articles a week on my desk that we review, we go through. And when I tell the associate, you help me get this out, I put your name on it too. Because I'm trying to help you brand and build your reputation so that there are going to be events that I can't go to, but then I can send you to go in my stead because I know you've learned the material, you can handle it.
One other thing that I want to add, because I think it's pretty evident, but I just want to make sure, you've got to be tough. I mean, you really do. This, you know, you got to be thick-skinned and you got to be tough in these places. Am I right? You really do. So this, you know, being, you know, mild, meek, and everything hurts my feelings, and I grew up with all this, Mom and Dad gave me everything. You gotta
Get over that.
get over that.
Get over that.
All right.
And also, I mean, a lot of the focus has been on law firms, and I know a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, if this is what life is like in law firms, then I want to leave law firms. And the reality is that if you want to attain a position of leadership in whatever professional aspect there is, you've got to do the same thing. It doesn't matter if you go to the government, if you go to DOJ, if you go to NAACP Legal Defense Fund, if you go into whatever endeavor, I think that these things are the things that are going to propel you, working harder than everybody else, going the extra mile, being proactive. So it's not just a law firm and gee, aren't law firms scary places. It's what you have to do to brand yourself and to get where you want to go, whatever direction you ultimately decide to go in.
Gotta pay your dues. Yes, yes, sir.
Thank you. I guess I sort of have two questions. The first is just about resources, or maybe something that you've read recently, or a book that sort of you thought had some of these ideas and sort of helped you in your career. And then also for, I guess, the law students in the room, myself included, things that you did as a summer associate that you think really sort of cemented your place or was a stepping stone into future opportunities.
We're going to do short answers. First, we're going to do the book or something that you've read. Anybody?
It's very, very simple. The best book I've ever read on business is always the Bible. Yeah. And you don't think it's crazy, but if you read the Bible and practice those principles, there's something about sowing and reaping. Mm-hmm. If you want to reap a big harvest, you got to sow. So if you want to have a great career, you got to sow into yourself, sow into everything that you do. So when I go in, it's like, when can I sow today? Because I know when that's going to come back. So the articles and things I do today produces my business tomorrow. Mm-hmm.
So faith is clearly important. You've written some things, haven't
Yeah,
you?
I've written things, but I would say I actually try to avoid the let me find a book that gives me a roadmap, because everybody's book reflects their own experiences. So you can pick up Sheryl Sandberg's book and you may agree with part of it, you may not agree with part of it. You can pick up somebody else's book. So I tend to steer people away from books, because then people are like, well, chapter 3 said I need to do this. And chapter 3 isn't the guide to your life. You've got to figure that out. So I tend to read things that are more contemporary. I mean, I tend to read a lot of journals. I tend to read, as Grace said, read newspapers. So I read newspapers, I read blogs, and I try to stay away from the books, because to me that's kind of the give me life in a toolkit, and life cannot be condensed to 200 pages through somebody else's perspective. It just can't be.
And you had a second question, which was?
Maximizing your experience as a summer associate, or I guess.
Well, I have somebody who hires a bunch of them.
And I was one. No, I mean, I think I had a couple folks who were summer associates back there. But no, seriously, I think, depending on your experience, everybody doesn't go to a law firm to be a summer associate, okay? But from at least the law firm perspective, coming in and basically doing all those same things you would do as an associate. All those things I talked about as a summer. Being engaged, being curious, being energetic, being dependable, turning your work in on time. Big thing as a summer associate, because if you can't get your work in on time as a summer associate, you're done. You're done. Okay, I'm going to tell you that. Time and proofing your work. Believe it or not, I've had some great papers, great memos, great briefs, but you can tell a person didn't put care into it. So it really is doing your best, turning things in on time, and getting to know people and making people feel comfortable with you. This is somebody who we want to hire into our firm, into our group.
And also, not to be glib, but also it's playing the game. You can do great work, but if you don't show up for the social events, which really are not optional, you've got to figure out,
Say that one more time.
Really?
You need to be there. They need to see you.
You need to show up. Particularly, I mean, it's not fair, okay, because life isn't fair. But if you're like one or two black associates, summer associates, and there's a summer associate dinner and you don't show up, everybody's going to remember that you didn't show up. And everybody's going to, well, why didn't I? And you're going to get the next day, so I noticed that you weren't there. ... So the summer associate position is your opportunity to learn the substance, do good work, but it's also the opportunity to frankly learn how to play the game.
Very quick.
I was going to say very quick. I actually read a lot of stuff outside of practice, and I do it on my way to work, and I listen to CDs and stuff like that. So I love biographies. Don't use it as a roadmap. Exactly, you don't want to do that. But Young Thurgood, for example, is written by a professor up at University of Maryland now. It's a great book that you may want to look at. One of my favorite biographies ever is First in His Class by David Moranis and Bill Clinton. And I wouldn't read them as a roadmap, but you will see so many of the same sort of themes here: working hard, just being aggressive, being proactive, thinking ahead, and those things will inspire you. I think they kind of inspire me to move forward. But again, if you look at it as a roadmap and okay, I've got to do this by a certain date, that kind of defeats the purpose. But biographies, I like.
Brandon. My question is, what makes an associate a go-to associate? Richard, you mentioned earlier that you would get a 12 a.m. phone call from Australia. So when that matter comes to the door, who's the first associate that pops into your mind? I mean, you don't have to state the name, but what skill set does that person have?
The ones that when we actually do interviews at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and they're there, they get it done, and when I need to have that memo at 6 in the morning, we show up in the office, they've been up all night and they produce that memo. I go back to the folks that deliver when it's crisis time, because I need folks that I can depend on to get the job done. And then they do the same thing. They identify young associates that will come and do what they need to have done, get me what I need to have done. We're very upfront. This is a 24/7 daily business. We work around the clock. Our motto is have bags packed, will travel. So my associates keep a suitcase in their office. And if the wrong thing breaks, they all have nannies. They have stuff. So when we need to go, we go. If people start telling me, well, I got this commitment, I got that commitment, or I don't want to put in this kind of time, I appreciate that, I can understand that, but that just told me you're not going to put in the time I need to get the job done. Because when a client in my business has a problem, they got a problem, and they want it solved now. If I don't solve it, then they're calling another law firm to solve it.
All right. Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to hear your perspectives on breaking into the law firm. I mean, so from a lateral position, whether it's you're already an associate at a law firm and you're then trying to transition into another law firm, or you're, nonprofit or your government, and then you're also trying to transition, particularly with the focus between the 2 to 5 year out of law school time frame, with the caveat of not trying to transition with the label that you may have, like if you're a regulatory attorney or if you're a health benefits attorney or something like that, but trying to break through laterally and also break through, I guess, topically as well.
All right. Talk about those laterals, 2 to 5 years. Well, let me parse your question a little bit. When is the ideal time to be a lateral in law firm? When I was coming up, they used to say, that 3 to 5 year range, you had some skills and people were interested. What do you think today?
I think it depends. I don't think there's any hard and fast. A lot of it depends on what's going on at the law firm. What kind of activity, what kind of cases, what kind of investigations, what the needs are of the law firm. It's rare that you're sort of just sitting there and, oh, I got an open position. It really, especially in this economy, it really does go with work. I got a big case that comes in the door. We got to staff this up. We don't have enough people. And you need, obviously, for specialized practices, and if you're, and Ben and Monty can talk about environmental, but I would say from a labor and employment standpoint, I can take in somebody who hasn't necessarily done employment litigation, but they've litigated, okay? Because I always remember I started doing employment litigation as a general litigator. I know how to litigate. Somebody can tell me about the employment aspect. You can learn that kind of stuff. For the more specialized area, it might be a little more difficult.
I would not hire a general litigator in my practice because I need someone who's got a certain amount of judgment that only comes from having done this a long time. And, you know, judgment, we don't sometimes have time for the learning curve. I need someone who can hit the ground running day one and spot all the issues, because that's just the nature of my practice. Because if you get it wrong, there are dire consequences. But now, that's at the partner level. But I have had associates who were in estates and trusts, but they were hardworking. We had, when I first joined the firm, we had a big case over in Paris. I had to send 90 associates to Paris to work for 3 months. They had to work 18, 19-hour days. We worked in shifts. They only had like a 5-hour shift break, you shower. It was so tense that we had the food outside of the door. So you come down, you get your breakfast, and you went to work. You had lunch, you know. And the group that met that schedule, instead of the schedule, regardless of what their expertise, we started there and said, okay, as the practice grow, instead of me hiring someone outside of the firm, because I would get this expense. We got this great estate and trust associate in New York, in LA. I'm going to move her from LA to New York because we can teach her the skill set. And that's what I'm saying. These were people who didn't do what I did, but they showed a commitment to the law and a willingness to work and put in the time to get the job done.
I think the key is taking your experience, whatever your experience may be, and trying to fashion it and show whoever the hiring partner is how what you have done could still fit into what they do. That's the
and
key.
Keep your networks fresh, because there will be times when you think you know whatever it is you know, wherever you are, and you maybe have lunch with someone who's at a firm, or there are opportunities that then break that you can then kind of jump in. I've heard that between 3 to 5 years is a good prime time, because after that, your billing rate's a little bit higher, and so people are trying to figure out what you can do. But if you're younger than that, you don't know anything. So, but that said, because of the changing dynamics of the practice of law, as you said here, people want to get people who know what they're doing, and they don't have to ramp up to them.
I personally, I want someone that has this experience, but to be honest with you, I like to see the hunger. I like people that are hungry, H-O-N. And I can tell hunger in the eyes of another person. I can tell. I can tell when they want it like a hog wants slop. That's it. And that's the person that I want. They're not. It's not casual things. I want to be here. I want to work on this case, and they are driven. And there's you can't fake that. And when you see it, you know it when you see it. And so if you can bring these skills, the writing, the substantive knowledge, excellent. But apart from that, you've got to demonstrate that strong interest. I think
You've also got to be flexible, because what I see when people let a lateral in, it's like, well, I have 5 years of experience doing X. Will you bring me in as a 5th year and pay me what 5th years get paid and put me in this particular practice group? And law is a metrics-driven business. So you've got to be flexible. It's like, okay, maybe we won't bring you in as a 5th year. Maybe we'll bring you in as a 3rd year. And I've had people say, no, that's not what I want. So it's that fine line between being hungry and also knowing where you have leverage, and how to navigate and get where you want to get. Because you know what? You'll make it up, because people will say, oh, this person has a lot of experience. So you'll start to get work that isn't necessarily commensurate with the level that you're brought in at. But you do have to have flexibility. Have flexibility on the year. Have flexibility in the practice group that you're hired into. Have flexibility with respect to the timing. So keep an open mind, maintain your external networks, do all the things that they said, and also be flexible.
And if you can really play, they'll be able to tell. So you may be back in the 3rd year class when you're supposed to be in the 5th year class, but you may be able to outperform the 5th or the 6th year. And I know that, and in time,
it makes up on that. I've had people who have actually been partners or maybe had other firms to come in as a senior associate just to work with us, right? And those who knock out of the park, you better believe me, I take care of them, and they get put where they're supposed to be real well. Like, we have bonuses, and when you perform, I can equalize that, pay them for bonus overnight.
There will come a time when the rookie will get the contract they deserve. So if you can really play, just be prepared to come in that way. There must be other questions. I see some wonderful people back there. My Houston, Texas lady.
Ben.
No, I know. I was
Oh, okay.
I saw. I got good vision. Yes, man. I want to give some of the young people back there a shot.
I have a question in regards to making a niche area. A lot of the panelists mentioned just trying to find expertise within your practice group. How would you suggest finding that niche area? Some mentioned reading newspaper articles, but are there any other avenues by which an associate would be able to?
Monty, might you talk about how you're not that far from law school.
No.
And tell them how you started developing your niche, and you talked about the story about writing the article on the Clean Air Act and how you persuaded the partner.
Life Lady, for me it was writing, and you hear a lot of that. And writing, it doesn't have to be a large article, but ABA, ABA, a variety of places where you can do short things. And then that gives you some knowledge. And then you can kind of leverage that to speaking in front of various people and that sort of thing. And so you then branch out. And it's like speaking is something that's big. You can do pro bono work. That's a way to develop a niche. But for me in particular, it was writing because it's something quick. It's something that I like writing. And it's something that I could do and could kind of leverage. So.
The other thing is trying some good things. So for example, in our labor and employment practice, when associates come in, they generally come in and they're doing a lot of different kinds of labor and employment things. And, for example, they might say, I've never really done any, RLA work. And so you say, well, go talk to that partner and say, hey, the next opportunity that you have, I'd like to try it. So be proactive about that kind of stuff. If you know there's work there that sounds interesting, but you're not getting it, there's nothing wrong with saying to the partner who does that work, I'd like to be considered to do some of that work if there's an opportunity. And that way you get to see other things.
And also, if you're working for a partner like my associate, I ask them on a monthly basis, what else do you want to do? Because you need to have multiple skill sets. So if this practice slows down, you can do something else.
Well, wait a minute. He's saying that's a whole lot of wisdom in there. Repeat that last sentence. If something slows down, what?
You have to have the ability to do something else. And so I try to tell my associates, I want to make you multifaceted. So that if the regulatory work slows down, you can do civil litigation. So if you tell me you have an interest in doing that, I then go on my way to find big-time civil litigators and carve out work for you to do for them, because I'm about for you. But that means you still have to do my work, but then at the same time do this other person's work. And now, but here's the beauty of that. Now you got two partners that love you. And you started to build a kind of network in the firm, and that person says, I get so-and-so, he's pretty good. And someone gets in the partner rank, if you really have what needs to be done, this associate will put in the extra time. Or be mature enough to say, I just got someone who said, can I do X? Can your project wait? I don't get upset with that. I get upset when people don't come and tell me that they got conflicting projects. Because we're all going to have conflict. You learn how to manage them as an adult. And find mentors. At my firm, when I joined, the managing partner was 20 years my senior. And we sit down and talk, and he goes, you're going to be my legacy to the firm. So every day for 5 years, I'll go to this office and just, Joe, how did you do it? Because I had this thing, about this doing in the summer, he goes, don't reinvent the wheel. Here's how our firm operates. Here's what we do. Here's what you're going to have to do. And people are like, you run to Joe's office. I'm like, if he's willing to share his wisdom with me, I'm going to sit under his feet and learn. When Joe retired last year, I skipped being the managing partner. I'm on my firm's executive committee because of the time he's been here over 5 years, teaching me how to practice law. And I was smart enough to be willing to learn from him and accept what he had. And there are a lot of days when Joe said things I didn't like. But we had this rich idea, look, I want you to be brutally candid and honest about my performance and what I need to do to be successful in this law firm.
And also, this is kind of the mentoring and sponsorship up, and also looking at networking laterally, because again, what you want to do is you want to find an area of the future. That's something that you may have access to that the partner in the corner office doesn't. Like, let's take, for example, a field that's hot right now, cybersecurity. You know more, your colleagues know more, your peers who've grown up in the internet age know more than the 60-year-old Rainmaker does. You understand things in ways that a 60-year-old rainmaker doesn't. And I think that people tend to realize, again, it goes back to bringing value. That's where you have value, and that's where you can spot things that other people who are more senior may not be able to. So that's also a way to identify things that are very cutting edge. You have a lot more power in different ways than I think most young people think they have.
Yes, and then you're next.
Quick question, you just mentioned cybersecurity. Specifically, what are some other practice areas other than cybersecurity that are hot practice areas that are going to have a long-term future for associates that want to really carve their niche out?
Yeah, let everybody answer that.
If you're going to do international law, and you're going to do it on the regulatory side, you have to become a privacy expert. Because every country has different data, rules, and regulations. You're going to do a U.S. style investigation in Timbuktu, you and your client are in jail. And so the smart associates have become, in certain countries, I'm the expert. So when I have a case in this country, we know who to turn to because they've taken the time to learn the various privacy regimes around the world as relates to running investigations on a global basis.
Yeah, and a good way to do that just across disciplines is just obviously just read the papers and just kind of stay up to where the law is changing, certainly in the healthcare field with Obamacare. That's huge. I mean, they're still writing the regs. Yeah. And we're still trying to still figure out, what's what the environmental world fracking is certainly a huge issue, particularly because the states are trying to figure out what they want to do. And then some states have moratoriums on the issue, but there's a groundswell of economies that we want to improve. And so, anyway, so sort of looking at the law and the changes in public policy will kind of help you figure out, okay, they've got to write regs for that. And then that's going to lead to possibly litigation and certainly regulatory work.
Ultimately, you want to follow the money.
That's
right. We spend money on health care, right? We spend money on military defense. We spend money on energy, right? And and Grace's area, people, that's the one thing that you still have to have.
Yeah, companies still have to have employees.
And anytime you have men and women in the workplace, someone's going to do something.
If I can tell a quick joke related to Ben, I remember I used to write a little bit about climate change, which is extremely important, and that's going to be certainly a future area as well. But I remember talking with Ben about what I was doing, what I was thinking about, and he just in his way said, listen, he said, I hear that, but money, I just don't see a whole lot of money. And that was all I needed. So, what, that's a good point. Because I sort of am interested in the world and you read about stuff, but you want to think about that too. This is a business.
My Uncle Ben had that rice recipe. He couldn't figure out what to do.
It's looking at buckets, and again, it's directly applicable to the practice of law. For those of you who are thinking about other things, like I'm in professional development, but I'm also, because globalization, internationalization, big themes. So I'm on the diversity committee of the ABA section of international law. Because diversity in the UK system looks very different from diversity in the US system. Why is the UK system important? Look at the fastest growing economies. Look at India. Look at most of sub-Saharan Africa. Most of the professionals in those countries are educated in the British system. So if you're looking at Ghana, if you're looking at Kenya, if you're looking at Nigeria, you're looking at India, you're looking at Pakistan, you've got to understand the British class system in the diversity context, not just what we think of in the United States. So no matter what area you're going into, the private sector, public sector, whatever practice, you've got to look at these overarching themes and think about how can I take these overarching themes and incorporate them into what I'm doing? Because that's always going to keep you at the cutting edge of whatever it is. Be it cybersecurity, be it labor and employment, international, transnational employment issues. Be it in investigations where, like the EU privacy, it's like if you're doing investigations, you got to know what's going on the EU privacy side. But again, keep those big themes in mind, and you can push out a lot of subject matters.
What has your firm identified as hotspot? Like for example, my firm on June 30th is going to go from 800 lawyers to 3,800 lawyers around the globe. Because the firm wanted to go global, and we're going to be in 29 different countries. Well,
Do they want to go global because they just want to see what the weather was like? Why do they want to go global?
Because all of our multinational and major clients were going global, and we're losing business to other law firms.
So they wanted to be where those clients
Where those clients were. It's like, client's going to be here, we're going to be there. I mean, just every time I did an investigation around the globe, I had to hire local counsel. But guess what started happening? Next time a client had a problem in that country, they didn't call me, they called local counsel.
Right.
And so the firms were getting smart, saying, okay, this is a business. We have certain key clients that pay us significant enough money that makes it worth our while to be where they're at, so we can become their firm in those countries as well. The associates that think internationally are like saying, we can be seconded. People want to go to Hong Kong and Beijing because they understand they need to become the expert when they come back home. We have a problem in Hong Kong. I'm going to go to the person when they spent 6 months, a year in Hong Kong.
Amen. This young lady had a question.
Yes. Richard touched on mentorship, and you mentioned that someone came to you and specifically said, I'm going to mentor you. For people who may not necessarily have those types of opportunities, what would you suggest we should do as junior associates? Without being awkward and like not, making sure that you give the person their time and all of, like, how do you just balance that relationship?
When I wanted to leave the government, I had a lot of adversaries, but I never made enemies. Fierce litigation, but maybe going to have dinner with someone after the litigation. I sat down and identified who I believe were the top white-collar lawyers in the D.C. marketplace, called them each up and said, I want to take you to lunch. Took them all to lunch and said, here's what I'm thinking about doing. One of them was very prominent. He used to represent Bill Clinton. And he's like, it's real simple. I can hire you. You can work for me. You become one of 20 that's going to fight on the bones when I die. Or I can teach you how to build your own practice. So if you'll agree to meet with me once every quarter, I will begin to just share with you how I built my practice. And so once a quarter, this lunch costs me a sizable sum. But for me, it's like that. I don't care how much it costs, I don't care how much money he brings into his firm. He's got like 110 partners working for him, so he's absolutely doing something right. So let me glean from what he's doing so I don't have to reinvent the wheel. But if I had never taken the initiative to call and take him out to lunch and say, here's what I want to do, he would never take the chance to say, well, let me help you do what you want to do. Because people like helping people. I mean, there are folks that in the government now, before they leave, I get a phone call, and when I get this phone call, it's can we go to lunch? I know they're thinking about going, and I will go and spend time with them because I don't know where they're going to end up. But that's me showing in them, showing interest in their lives. When they do end up in other places, they become clients or they refer business to.
Just to add to that, there's a great publication that the Environmental Law Institute puts out, an environmental report, and there's a great lawyer, Elliot Laws, who writes in that publication. It's in the environment world.
He's at Crowell Mooring.
And he's at the great Crowell Mooring, and they had pictures of everybody who sort of writes for these things. Ben's been spotlighted, They got pictures of the office. I saw African American. Brother was writing about the environment and business. So I just looked up on the internet and reached out to him and said, hey, I read your stuff every month, great stuff. And he reached back, and we had lunch, and he's been a very good friend to me. So you find your mentors. I think it's a good way to say it, but just find people that can kind of give you insights. You call them mentor, you call them your buddy, your cousin, just whatever.
Yeah, but you need people inside too. I mean, let's not forget. Yeah, I had a lot of mentors that I reached to outside, develop a mentoring relationship. But, wherever you're working, you're talking about Linkletters, I mean, that's going to be a unique or different institution. And if an outside mentor, they can give you sort of advice from afar, but you need to develop relationships with people in the firm as well as a mentor. And you will get a feel for, it could be somebody you work with, it could be a partner that you work with, it might even be a senior associate. Doesn't necessarily initially have to be a partner, but you want to find somebody who you can develop their relationship. And it's nothing wrong with doing the same thing. I don't know how many associates reach out to me and say, will you mentor me? What am I going to say? No, I'm not going to mentor you. Now, some people are better at it than others, so it may take a while. As you become more senior, and I know Monica would talk about this, you need more than a mentor. You actually need a sponsor. And a sponsor is somebody who, you know, is going to lay it on the line, their reputation, their position in the firm, to fight for you. Okay, and fight is an overstatement, but you know what I mean, to really support you. But that comes with time.
And that's also very much of a two-way street. I think a lot of people are like, you know, will you mentor me? Will you give? At a certain point, you've got to switch those relationships around, because by definition, if you're looking at a sponsor and you're a protege, it's about what are you doing for that person?
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing so that that person will put his or her political capital behind you, as opposed to any of the dozen of your colleagues that person can put his or her capital behind, because that person can't put his or her capital behind everybody. So what are you going to do to make sure that the person who gets that boost is you? And that's where the work comes in. That's where it's like, if somebody says, I got a client call, it's Friday at 5 o'clock, I'm going to need somebody here over the weekend. If you're like this, then you're not going to get a sponsor. It's about what are you willing to do, how engaged are you willing to be, and it becomes very much of a two-way street.
I can assert that he's going on vacation, but he knows we got a problem coming up next Friday. Although he's going to be at Disney World in LA with his family, he's already made an appointment to have an office in our office in LA. Told his wife on that day I need to be on the phone with my partner to get ABC. I didn't have to tell him to do that. He just came and said, will this work for you? Or if not, then I'll have to rearrange my vacation. That kid has my support because he goes out of his way to make sure that whatever I need to have done, my client have done, gets done.
You got to make that. You got to make the partner, whoever's going to be your sponsor, you got to make that person's life easier. That's my role. Okay. I travel a lot. My associates who are here will tell you I'm on the road all the time, and the people who I value and who I'm willing to sponsor are the folks who can handle what's going on when I'm on a plane somewhere and I'm out of touch, who have the judgment and who've shown and proved to me I can deal with a client, I can deal with the court, I can do this when you just can't do it. So that's the person I'm going to stick my neck out for and say, this person deserves to be a partner because.
And your sponsors may not look like you.
Right.
Let's get a final question from Houston, Texas, right there. And because we want to give you all a chance to network and maybe grab a little something, if there's something like that. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. We talked a little bit about lateraling out of firms, but what if you're trying to lateral into a firm at some point in your career? So you start off in the government, working for an agency. What are some of the key guidelines that you would give for someone who has maybe developed a niche or don't develop a niche? Some of the advice that you would give for someone thinking about lateraling.
That was our last program last month, but we're going to talk about it now, please. So you're very timely.
Well, look, what agency are you at now?
Well, I'm with the White House office.
Okay. It's real simple. We hire people from those agencies that create issues for corporate America. So if you're at the agency that's prosecuting, setting the regs, you're going to make yourself an expert where it can be sold to corporate America. Go to an agency that doesn't do anything that either complicates corporate American life or it's going to penalize them, you're not going to be really high in demand. Like, for example, if you were saying you were at DOJ in the FCPA fraud unit, you can walk out of that place today because they're bringing all these cases and you will have a nice bump. Now, if you say I'm at some sleepy INS, important job, but big corporate firms aren't looking to build an INS practice. So when you're going into government, you want to think about what are the agencies that are stirring the pot, making the new laws, passing new regs and regulations going to impact how business functions.
The other thing that I would say is that it's something that you want to plan. Obviously, you don't just, you decide you want to make a move, but you know, you do what Richard said, you talk to other people who made the move, you get some sense of how they did that successfully. You built a network, as others have said, so that there are people that you can actually talk to. And again, I think you have to be patient and look for an opportunity where you can be successful. And if you're at a place where it's not working out, you know, you don't want to leave until you have something else, but you don't want to stay there forever either. belief in yourself, that you'll find a place that will value what you do. Again, you've been an unbelievable audience tonight, and would you join me in thanking our panel? With that, I invite you to eat and drink and talk, and again, welcome. Thank you.